Okay. Hey, Tereleigh, we're recording now.
Okay.
So, I wanted to do this Zoom today just to give people an idea about what the warfare journey looks like from the perspective of someone who's actually been on the journey, other than myself.
Sure. Mhm.
So, what I'm going to do is I'll talk a little bit about it, and then I'll ask you some questions, so maybe you can chime in as I'm talking.
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So, and I've shared this in many different ways in my on my Facebook lives and in the things that I write and the things that I share. My invisible warfare journey started 20 years ago this year, which is really amazing. It started in 1999. Isn't that crazy?
That's incredible.
99. And it's interesting because I think, probably most of my life like in great inquiry.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, this Tereleigh and I have known each other for
Well, 40 years now. What did you say?
40,
Yeah, 40.
40 years, okay?
Yeah.
So I started the invisible warfare journey 20 years after I met you.
Mm-hmm.
But even when I met Tereleigh when I was 10 years old, it was really always in this space of like, what is life really all about? Like I mean, in a lot of ways, I had an amazing life and an amazing family and amazing friends and grew up in an amazing community. And still, there was always something sort of looming over me, like, what the fuck is this really all about? Like,
Right.
I was really on this like journey for soul searching. I think that's probably why we were kindred spirits, right?
Well, that's it exactly. I mean, because we both felt like we didn't quite fit in with the group. I
Right.
think it was because we were a little introspective.
Yeah, we were outliers a bit in that we were searching for deeper meaning, maybe.
Yep.
So that's interesting because I guess I would venture to say, this is like buyer beware for people that are thinking about invisible warfare. Like, I think you have to be a person who is truly searching for deeper meaning to want to do this work. Would you say that is correct?
Absolutely. I mean, you have to want to do it because it's hard work in the fact that if you don't want to discover more about yourself, this is totally not the place for you.
Yeah.
And hard work meaning that, there's some things that you kind of realize. There's some, roadblocks that you kind of realize about yourself and, are challenged to work through those.
I'm going to go back later because I'm going to ask a question now, so I'm going to go back and tell more of the story later. But I guess what I'm curious to know for you, having gone on this journey, what are, like, and knowing that you're saying that it's hard,
Mm-hmm.
not an easy journey. Uh, my friend Martin and I used to always call it the "We Do Not Fuck Around" club. Like, this is not for people that want to take the easy road at all.
No.
Knowing that getting into this is like the "We Do Not Fuck Around" club. Why do you do it? Like, why are you still on this journey with us? Because what we know is that some people have left the journey, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So why are you still on it?
Well, for me, this is the way I feel alive. Doing this kind of work for myself, it's the way that I feel. And even though it's difficult, I feel alive. I feel invigorated. I feel like my life has purpose.
Hmm. Why?
Why do I feel like my life has purpose?
Why do you, why does this make you feel alive?
Because it challenges me. I'm not living in the status quo. It challenges my thoughts. It challenges my feelings. It challenges my way of looking at things. And so therefore, I'm not stagnant. I'm not sitting in one place. I'm growing. And if I'm not growing while I'm living this life, well then what am I doing?
Hmm.
Like
Right. What's the purpose?
Right.
That reminds me of, right, the definition of insanity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Doing things the same way and expecting different results.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I guess what you're saying, what I hear you're saying is that you're not willing to live the status quo, so you're choosing to do it differently. And I think that's
Absolutely.
the challenge, is that so often in life, people do continue to do things the same way and do expect different results. I guess that's what we have so many crazy people in the world. Bingo! Like,
Well, and
no
I, say it again. I'm sorry.
further. We don't now know.
Mm-hmm.
What were you going to say?
Well, I just was going to say that I've seen it. I've seen it with. I want to say other people, but I'm sure I've seen it with myself. Like doing things the same way and expecting, or getting into a relationship with the same type of person. It's like the John Kabat-Zinn. Wherever you go, there you are. So like.
Right. Yeah. So just kind of going back to my story is 20 years ago, I really was at a crux in my life, like at a crossroads. And that, I was living like a pretty cool life. I was an executive at Paramount. I was living in a cool place in Santa Monica, which I'm still living in. 7 blocks from the beach. Haven't left. Haven't found a better place. I, had lots of great friends. I was traveling the world. Like, I was doing some really cool shit. And at the same time, a piece of me I still was feeling that, like, that question of, like, what is life really all about? And so I told the story a bit in my invitation that I haven't shared yet. I should share that on Facebook. My invitation for this next Invisible Warfare group that we're having. I went on this yoga retreat.
Mm-hmm.
You remember this or not, and I was in Maui, and I met this woman, Marty, who's become a very good friend of mine. And she was like, you really need to meet this woman, Mona. And I was like, oh, I'm good. Like, I felt like I was sort of on this other journey with yoga and meditation. And I was like, no, I think I'm all right. I was working with some other healers, and I was like, I'm good. And she's like, no, I really think that, like, you really need to meet Mona. And I very, very reluctantly went to her house and had a session. And it's a day that I'll never forget. Like, because it completely changed my life. And she used a couple of the tools that we've talked about in Invisible Warfare. And so basically, I was unearthing some feelings that I'd had for many, 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 many years. And she was there to completely hold the space in an absolute loving, non-judgmental way.
Mm-hmm.
And it, like, turned my life upside down, like, in the most extraordinary way. So extraordinary.
Like it was hard for you, but.
Well, it was so painful because actually she had me write a couple of different letters to a couple of different people.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote a fuck you letter to my mother, a fuck you letter to my father, and then I wrote a fuck you letter to myself.
And to her.
Probably to her too. You know what's interesting? It might not have been a fuck you to my parents. It might have been, when I look at USC, when I look at you, I feel. It might have been that. I can't remember exactly. But then I wrote a fuck you to myself, and it was like, oh my God. When I realized the self-hatred and the self-loathing and the self-beat that I had for me, I was like, fuck, no wonder I can't get out of jail free.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, like, I had this incredible insight, right? And what we learned when we studied our last chapter of Invisible Warfare, that's intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
In intimacy, we have insight. So I was being intimate with myself. And I had this incredible insight. And what was even more amazing about it was there was someone there with me to witness it in the most beautiful way. Like, not hating me because I was hating myself, but loving me because I had this moment. And it really was a defining day in my life. Because
I think that when you're talking about the judgment, I think that was a real important piece that we talked about early on. And just in that way, that not judging ourselves, because that's so what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And so to learn how to not judge ourselves, but not even just like judging myself because of, I don't know, the way I look, but not judging myself because I have I don't know how to describe it, like a bad thought, or like in doing the work, or sometimes I'll judge myself because I'm not doing the work like I think I should be doing, or judging myself for different components where I have to go back and say I've learned, like, no, you don't need to judge yourself about any of that.
And what we have learned is that the more we judge ourselves, the more we judge others.
100%.
And so when we can be in the, it brings tears to my eyes just thinking about that. Because it's like, it's impossible for us, if we're hurting ourselves, to not be in that same thing to others somehow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Might be passive, might not be obvious, right? But it's somewhere. Because we only have the capacity to love others as much as we can love ourselves.
Right. Yep. Yeah, that old, they talk about it all the time, the whole oxygen mask, taking care of yourself and loving yourself before you can help others.
Right. Yeah. So I feel like I want to read something out of the chapter 1 about judgment. Feeling the call. Feeling cold. That means I have to take my feet off. I have my feet up on the couch. That means I have to put my feet down. Actually, maybe I don't. Actually, I don't. I don't at all. Okay. So here's the book, Invisible Warfare. Mine has had lots of use. Let's see what chapter 1 says. I'm sure I have something great highlighted.
I'm sure.
I've no doubt there's something fantastic highlighted in here. Ah. Oh, yeah. Here. You create and become what you subconsciously believe, whether it is true or not. So if we're believing something that's not nice about ourselves, that's what we're putting out into the world.
Mm-hmm.
World, right? And then I love this. It's we heard this is so trite, but I'm going to say it anyway. Is two things I'm going to read. Do you want to change the world? Then change you. Like, we have to start with ourselves. That's why, for me, right, that day that I wrote that fuck you letter to myself, and I realized what I was doing to me,
Mm-hmm.
like, was a pivotal moment in my life. Because I don't think that before that I had any awareness of that. And I was like 30 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea the depth of the pain that I was causing myself, let alone like I could actually do something about it.
Right.
So I love this other piece about judgment. Judging causes me to quit on others as well as on myself. Understanding opens my heart and mind and helps me be creative with others as well as myself. So in this work, I think one of the biggest pieces is us learning to understand ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And that's what everything in the book is aimed toward.
Right.
Why we do the things we do, to understand ourselves.
So how has understanding yourself changed things for you? Changed your game?
Well, understanding myself has led to less self-judgment, for sure. which is a pleasant place to be.
Mm-hmm.
And
What does that get you?
the less judgment. Well, what you just said, what you just read, is what it was completely about it. That, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but the judgment. If you have, what was it? Can you look it up again?
Yeah, it's right here because I love
Yeah.
this. Judging. There's no bad thing about reading this twice, 4,000 times. Judging causes me to quit.
Yes, exactly. So that's it. And so when I'm judging myself, it makes me want to quit. Say no more. You're bad. You suck. Blah blah blah. But whenever I meet myself with understanding, which I'm learning to do, it makes me say, like, it gives me the courage and the strength to go on.
Hmm. So maybe some brass tacks for those who are listening. I'd love you to talk a little bit about like your shift in making the decision to allow yourself to be visible on Instagram.
Oh, well, that was obviously that was a huge deal. And it was cute because I don't know if you remember, but we had to state our goal, what we wanted to achieve by the end of this. And I had said I wanted to be selling my bags and have 3 people sewing for me. And so then we did that. And then on Facebook, you said to write it down. And so I wrote down to be selling my bags. And you were like, okay, you said something about having 3 people sewing for you too. And I was like trying to get out of it. But so then, yeah, we started this and I said, okay, if I'm going to have 3 people sewing for me by the end of the 6 months, I better do something to work toward that. So I bit the bullet and set up an Instagram account. And I was so scared was my picture going to be good enough? My caption, just putting myself out there was very scary. And I did it. So I did it and I wrote all these dates down because it's just too exciting. I did it on December 3rd. And then
That's pretty amazing, by the way. I just to say,
yeah.
we started our group on December 1st. So you took action within 2 days.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Because you've been
Oh,
sitting
that is.
a while beforehand.
Oh my gosh. I couldn't do it. I was paralyzed. I could not, it was having that accountability, not accountability so much as what do you want to achieve? And I knew, like I said before, I knew that if I wanted to achieve this by the end of 6 months, I had to do something. I had to start somewhere. And so I just did it. And the interesting thing is whenever I decided to do it, I said to myself, just look at it as you posting pictures for your friends and family to see what you're doing. It doesn't have to be this big, huge, gigantic, online market through Instagram. Just look at it like that. And that made it easier for me to do. So like I said, I wrote it down. I don't remember what I was, but like, I don't know, January. I had that wholesale order for 40 bags.
It sounds like part of what you did was too, it's like being in understanding as opposed to judgment. You let go of any expectations of what it was. Like your whole thing was just to put it out there.
Yep.
It wasn't like judging what was or was not going to happen.
Right. And that was another thing when we talked about before in the group, with being in the store and seeing people actually pick up and touch the bags. And whereas before I would have had a lot of judgment and self-beat with myself, they don't like my bag, they think it's too much money, da, 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 da. But I was able to view them without judgment, that just might not be for them, and that's okay. And that was huge.
So what invisible warfare tools that we've learned in the book, and I realize there's 18 chapters in the book and we've completed 13 of them. So beyond the ideas that you've learned, like what are the actual tools that you've put into place in your life to help you like strengthen yourself in this, like in being more understanding rather than judgment? Like what are you doing on a daily basis or a weekly basis or a monthly basis to help you in this process?
Well, it's writing, doing the writing, and taking, well, it was interesting what we just learned and what we just went over in this last chapter with the whole turnaround type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
When I look at you, I see. When I look at you, I feel. And then changing the pronouns to I's, and just realizing that. So in doing that work, realizing that the judgment, it's about me. It comes back to being about me.
Yeah.
Um, and then the whole judge. What's it called? The whole worksheet. The whole
The rinsing sheet.
yes, the rinsing sheet.
So one of the things that we do in this work that Mona taught was that we rinse our feelings. That's kind of what I was talking about when I was inviting people to come to this conversation today, was using our emotions as our superpower. Our emotions have so much to tell us. There's so much great information in our emotions. And unfortunately, we live in a world where emotions are not looked upon favorably. Like, too much of anything is not necessarily acceptable. So we learn to shut our emotions down. When we shut our emotions down, we suppress our emotions, which causes depression.
Mm-hmm.
So in this invisible warfare work, what we do is we actually go after our emotions. We use that as a tool, as a fuel to gain information. So as Tereleigh was talking about, there's a rinse sheet. I'm so sad because, I'm so scared because, I'm so angry because. We just let ourselves have the emotions, whether that's in writing or a physical rinse. You can see right back there my bag that I do my punching on. So we give ourselves the time and space to actually let those feelings out. It's not necessarily appropriate to do that at somebody, although in the world that's where it is deemed to be acceptable, like road rage or someone getting angry at somebody and screaming at them or whatever that is. But what we do encourages as an exercise to do your feelings on a regular basis. I liken this to an emotional poop.
Mm-hmm.
So just like if we don't poop every day, sorry for those of you that get squeamish about the idea of pooping, but you know, the kids' book does say everybody poops, and if you don't, you're screwed in a big bad way, right?
Mm-hmm.
No one wants to be constipated, put it that way. So if you're not pooping on a regular or daily basis, you become constipated, which makes you toxic and sick. Well, just as important as the literal pooping, we need to emotionally poop on a regular basis. We need to get those toxic feelings and thoughts out of our heads and out of our bodies so that we can get clear, so we can feel free. The other way that I like to look at it is like what happens prior to the rainstorm, right? It's like dark and cloudy, and sometimes it's like you, especially in those summer rains, it's like you almost can't breathe. The air feels super thick and it just feels heavy and gloomy and doomy, right? And it's like, and then the rain comes, feeling your emotions, the rain, crying. And then after the rains come, what happens? The skies open up, it's blue, the birds are chirping. It's like this amazing, amazing, like, I can breathe again.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, everything feels totally possible.
Mm-hmm.
Day after the rain. I mean, we've had a ton of rain here in LA this winter, and it's like the days after it rains, it's like I still feel like that. It's like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. and I'm walking with like an extra, like, hop in my step because it just feels like that. And that's how we feel after we've emotionally processed.
Mm-hmm.
Go through the process. We let ourselves have the space and the time to do our feelings, and going through those feelings and using those as a tool to get clarity, to be clear on what it is that we actually want, what it is that we actually need to do as our next step. And then sometimes we go to the past, right? Like, we're not actually in present time. We're time traveling. Like, when we're really scared or upset about this thing that's happening right now, it's not about this. It's about what happened when we were 3 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh God. And then you get to let that, because the little kid at 3 didn't get to process that because their parents didn't know how to help them process it.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody taught them how to do that. So the little 3-year-old gets to process again. Then you can come back into present time and be like, oh, my lands, like, that had nothing to do with it. So then I can move forward and post my stuff on Instagram and then get 40 orders.
Right. And we know very well that, not that everybody needs to know, but what happens whenever you don't emotionally poop.
Yeah, what does happen, Tereleigh?
You get sick.
Yeah.
Really sick.
What kind of sick do you get? Like, that's right. I mean, it can be,
Yeah.
it can look a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
So how have you, when you haven't emotionally pooped, i.e. done your emotional processing work, what does that look like for you?
Oh, it manifests in boils.
Mm.
It wants to come out. I mean, there's nothing more symbolic, I think, than that.
It's
I
seething,
mean,
right?
yes, it needs to come out somehow, some way. And then the whole thing with the scare with the necrotizing fasciitis that I was in. I mean, like, that's some serious stuff that was going on, and I know that it was all related to the fact that I wasn't releasing things, I wasn't processing things, I wasn't able to. I wasn't being honest with myself. I wasn't being my true self. I wasn't. Now I have all of those things.
Yeah. I was just looking because I thought, didn't we read about, it was like, yeah,
Yes.
it's on my lap too. You can heal your life, which is amazing. The amazing work of Louise Hay, who's the woman that started Hay House Publishing, which many of you might know about. But the boils, I don't know why, because I thought that I read about this. We read about this at the night. Now I can't find it. Oh, yeah. Boils, otherwise known as furuncles. So the probable cause of boils, according to Louise Hay and the body-mind connection, is anger, boiled over, seething. So if Tereleigh, earlier in her life, when she was experiencing this boil issue, had been like processing her anger, she may not have gotten so sick.
And I think also learning to be honest that I was angry is something that I've learned to do through this.
Yeah.
And then not having judgment about myself for having the anger. So it's just this, full circle thing.
Yeah. Yeah. My coach, Allison, this is from a book, somebody's book, and I can't remember whose it is. She often says, like, how do you love yourself more, not less, which I love so much. And it's like, how do we stay in that space of loving ourselves more, not less? Even though, we're not perfect and we get pissed off and but whatever it is. It's part of the thing. Do you remember when we were in high school, we did that play, I think you did it with me, Free to Be You and Me?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And they have that song, It's All Right to Cry, crying takes the sad out of you. It's all right to cry, crying makes you feel better.
Right.
Yeah. And that's really what this is about, this part of the process. Like, yeah, like, let it out. I'll never, and you were, Tereleigh's been with me for a lot of my life, but I'm glad is thinking about it. That's okay. And I'm okay if I'm crying. So, when my dad died, I was hysterical at the funeral. By the way, I would never have made it through the planning or the arrangements for the funeral if Tereleigh hadn't been with me. She was like my right-hand woman. We picked out the gravesite. We went to the church. We did it all. And she was right there with me the whole time. Uh, it was a big job. And then when we got to the, actual funeral, I had some big feelings, which I've worked really hard to have. Like, I've earned my big feelings. I've spent a lot of my life not doing my feelings. And so now when I feel, I let it go. And so we were at the actual funeral in the church, and I was sobbing. And somebody in my family was like, Kristen, you got to pull it together. You have to stop. And I was like, I will not. And my son, who at the time had just turned 7, his 7th birthday was the day after my dad died. He said, Mom, scream and shout and let it all out. And guess what? I have 0 regrets about my upset about my father's death. 0.
Yeah.
Like, if I hadn't cried, maybe I'd be one of those people who, still trying to get over it. Like, I'm not trying to get over it. Like, it was a devastating time in my life and an amazing time. Actually, there's a lot of miracles in it too. Oh, Tereleigh also came to Florida while he was dying. Forgot about that.
Yeah.
Like, learning to address the feelings as they come is truly miraculous.
Well, and I think that's what, you did your grieving.
I did.
You grieved the loss of your father, and either people A, don't do that, or B, they might do it inappropriately at some other point to somebody else, or you know what I mean, like not in a healthy way. And you did it, and which we all have to do. That's something that has to be done.
Yeah. And I'm super grateful that I had the tools to allow myself to do that. And that even though people had a problem with it, I still let myself do it. Like, I knew that it was the appropriate thing for me.
And
Right?
people have a problem with it because they're not used to seeing that. And by the way, maybe they should do invisible warfare too.
Right. And I think that's kind of another piece of this is like that idea of if we do something, we give other people permission to do.
Absolutely.
I do believe that's a lot of my work is I'm going to show up really powerfully in the best way that I know how. And hopefully that will inspire others to do the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's for them. So
that goes to the Marianne Williamson quote, like, we don't do anybody any good by playing small.
Right. Yeah.
And I have a good example of that. It's interesting. I remember when Marin was little, and I was at a basketball game at the elementary school, and 2 women walked in, and one looked more like me with the oversized sweatshirt, the sweatpants, and the hair on top of her head with no makeup on. And in walked another woman who had her shit together. She looked good, her hair looked good, her makeup looked good, and she had a cute outfit on. And it was interesting to me how I enjoyed looking at her. It was like looking at a piece of art, or was something. She was really pleasant to look at, as opposed to the other woman. And it made me say to myself, it's okay to show up like that. I don't need to play small. In order for other people to feel better, or that one incident really helped me say, okay, you know what, you can take care of yourself.
Yeah. And what a beautiful reflection that is, because there's a time in your life or other people's lives where they might have just judged that, seen it as a reflection of who they actually really want to be. That's how you want to show up. And so she gave you a beautiful picture of how you want to show up. And we get to do that. We get to show people a picture of how they can show up. We get to show people a picture of what it looks like to embrace our emotions and process them so that we can live our most incredible lives, and that we don't have to live shut down and in the status quo, but we can live, miraculous lives.
And like you said, giving other people permission to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Being examples of that. There was another quote that was right above the other piece that I read about judging that I want to read in Invisible Warfare. It says, when people move from judging themselves or others to understand themselves and others, their lives begin to change in miraculous ways, one miracle at a time. I love that because uh, miracles is miracle. April's the month of miracles for me. And I read that, I was like, ooh, I'll use that quote.
Yep.
So, I'm trying to think how I want to wrap this up. Well, I want to thank you for being open to sharing your experience in Invisible Warfare.
Thank you.
It's important for people to hear it. I really believe in my heart that this is the work that everybody needs and not many people teach.
Yeah.
We're called to be doing this work. I feel like when I was brought back into the beginning of the conversation when I was talking about my journey, is that that day that I had with Mona in 1999, and I was like, holy shit, wow, I understand now why I'm fucked up. I don't mean that in the nicest of ways. Like, oh, I get it. Now I know. Like, I was like, I knew there was something wrong with me, and now I understand why. But until that moment when I realized, like, oh, my lands, I have so much, like, internal going on.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get that. Like, getting that was a game changer for me. And so then I was lucky enough to take this 12-year journey with Mona, where I got to work with her for 12 years and like, you know, watch my career blossom because of it. Talk about invisible warfare. It wasn't necessarily, I mean, I always worked hard, but it was like the energy that I brought to the table afforded me all kinds of opportunities because I was shifting my energy because the invisible warfare wasn't happening.
Right.
Creating invisible peace, right? It wasn't like I was talking to the people at Paramount about like what I was doing with myself. I mean, maybe I was talking to some people, but generally it wasn't like talking to the president about my internal work. But I was doing a lot of it, and they were like offering me promotions, and then I was able to like get really connected to like what it was that I dreamed to do because I was getting clearer and clearer and clearer and clearer because I was emotionally pooping a lot. Clarity, 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 right? And then I went to Africa and I started the Samburu project. And I mean, it just, the journey continues. But that work allowed me to like be on this amazing journey. I mean, it's interesting because you get to witness that too.
Absolutely.
And I mean, it's fucking rocky. It's not like, oh, you know,
no, well,
not rainbows and unicorns.
That's what I was going to say. Not rainbows and unicorns.
It's not rainbows and unicorns all the time.
But you get to that point, and like you said, that you have that aha moment, and that's pretty rainbowy-ish.
Mm-hmm.
Rainbowish, or
no, you know, like the rainbows and the unicorns when they do happen are very rainbowish.
Yeah.
Or rainbowy-ish. But the only way that we get there is by doing the work to arrive there. You know, it doesn't happen by, it's like this thing, right? The lives begin to change in miraculous ways when we start understanding ourselves and not judging ourselves, or understanding others, not judging others, right? That's where the miracles happen. And it's a lifelong practice. It doesn't just like, oh, I figured it out, snap. Like, I'm constantly working at, like, when I decided to do the Zoom call today, I was nervous. Like, I didn't want to do it. And I had all these things about like, what if no one shows up? Or what if, you know, no one ever watches this? Or what if I say something stupid? Or, you know, what if someone in my family watches it and really judges me and decides that they don't like that and then decides not to be in my family anymore? Not that it's ever happened, but I've got these crazy things in my head. And so I have to keep processing all of that. Like that fear that keeps me from moving forward to live my most extraordinary life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, yeah. So
I'm just gonna. I know we're gonna wrap it up, but I just have to say that, you know, the whole going through the fire to get to the rainbows and unicorns, and here we are upon the Easter season.
Yeah.
And just how symbolic that is, and what a beautiful. It's just a beautiful story for. I mean, every day there's deaths and resurrections.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be something even monumental. It could be a thought, and then you turn around that thought and there's your little resurrection.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because when I chose that this was the month of miracles, um, I actually, this is kind of weird, but I'm going to share it anyway because I'm weird. I decided to actually go through, I said, you know what, Mona, you tell me what this month is supposed to be about. And so I went through the book, like flipping the pages, and then I like pointed to a page because I didn't have it. Like I couldn't, like when I did self-love, that was easy. When I did transformation, it came to me. I just didn't know what this month was going to be about. And so I did this, and I can't remember what I landed upon now. And I like went like that, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's about miracles. Actually, it was one of Mona's stories about when she was in the wheelchair.
Oh, right.
And it was about miracles on some level, I guess. At least that's how I interpreted it. And I was like, it's miracles. And then I made the decision that I was like, oh my lands, how crazy, because it's the month of Easter, right? Where we get to hear this story about, whether you're, Christian or not, it's still a story of miracles. And in every religion, there's something that's related to the death and resurrection, right? I can't speak that intelligently about it because I'm not a religious studies major, but, chime in if you know it. So, yeah, so I feel after I was blessed with the ability to work with Mona as long as I did and learn her processes, and like the one other miracle of the world is that she wrote all of her processes in a book. Like it's here. And I know that was one of her goals, was to do that, so that like that for her son, so that this information would be on paper, like when she went. And then she happened to have an untimely death at the age of 50, just right after she turned 50. So I feel very called at this point in my life to share this work with those who are open and ready and willing and no longer want to live in that status quo.
Right.
They want those answers to like, what is my life really all about? Because I believe in my heart that we actually know what our life is all about and why we're here. We know so well. It's just sometimes we need to tap into that and to get to those answers. And I know because of my own personal experience that doing this work allows us to get there. It allows us to answer those questions. I am no longer confused.
Say that last part again.
I'm no longer confused.
Right. And I would say that not only does it give you that clarity, it's there's just so many little things along the way that are good.
Yeah. So if anyone's interested in joining the next Invisible Warfare group, we're starting on April the 15th. That's tax day, 2019. I'll put information down below. I don't know where I'm going to share this, but I'm going to share it somewhere. Tereleigh, I love you.
Oh, I love you so much. This is so great.
Fun.
So fun, right? So unexpected and so fun.
Yeah.
Yes.
Talk to you soon, I'm sure.
Okay.
Love you.
Okay, love you too. Bye.
My computer's not. Computer's frozen.
I'm gonna leave.
Here we are. My computer's totally frozen.
Love you.
I love you. Can you get out? Because I can't.
Yeah, I'm gonna get out.
Oh, here we are.
You got it? I don't want to leave you stranded.
Oh yeah, here we go. End meeting. Technology, always a challenge.
Bye-bye.
Love you. Bye.
Love you too. Bye.